Chapter 15, Hot, Squished, and Itching. We were riding fast. The radio blasted that new Elvis song that Jessalyn had played a zillion times on her record player, something about suspicion. I kept quiet and I rested my sweaty forehead against the picnic cooler. I heard Robbie say, "I'm glad you thought of getting something cold to drink for the ride. I brought my camera to take your picture in front of the house." But I kept still, barely breathing. "I saw you practicing football," Jessalyn said after a while. "Everybody is saying that you were the star back where you moved from. Why did you move? Why'd you leave?" "It's complicated," he said, "and private. Promise you won't tell?" I got a worried feeling in the pit of my stomach, like I had eaten something rotten. And somebody must have clicked the radio off because all I heard was the sound of wind whooshing through the windows and them shaking the ice in their Cokes. I managed to hear Jessalyn say, "I'm good at secrets. Preacher's kids hear a lot of stuff. Daddy has taught us not to gossip." Yeah, well, he might have taught Jessalyn, but I still had work to do on that lesson. At first, Robbie didn't answer. I listened hard to the whooshing wind and the rattling Coke ice. Then Robbie's words tumbled out, loud enough for me to hear. "I promised my aunt I wouldn't tell this. She doesn't want anybody sticking their noses into our family's business." Robbie got quiet again. Finally, he said, "If I hadn't come to live in Hanging Moss," Robbie struggled with his voice, and then he managed, "I might be in jail." Jail? Jessalyn and me were riding in a car to Kingdom Come with a jailbird? I put my hand over my mouth to keep it from yelping. Emma would have our heads and our tails on a platter. For the first time ever, Jessalyn was speechless. She was probably thinking about Emma's wooden spoon coming in for a smack to the back of her "it's just the style" skirt. Quietly, Robbie said, "I got in trouble back in North Carolina. It was in the newspapers." "What kind of trouble?" Jessalyn asked carefully. "There was this dime store with a place to eat inside. Just stools and a counter, good hot dogs and ice cream. I saw a boy there, a colored friend named Henry. His daddy worked on my granddaddy's farm. Sometimes we'd throw the ball around, act like we were scoring. Henry was always nice to me. Our schools were getting ready to join up next year. Our town wasn't really big enough to have a school for white students and a school for Negro ones. We would have ended up on the same football team." I kept holding my breath. Henry was sitting there waiting to order something. One of his friends was reading a book. They were talking quietly, not doing anything bad. Except in our town, colored people aren't supposed to eat where white people eat. I was all ears now. Robbie could have been describing Hanging Moss. Same thing for us. Colored people and white people are kept separate at pools, schools, restaurants, even the town library. "What did you do?" Jessalyn asked. "The waitress yelled at them to leave, so I found a stool next to Henry, and I sat down to order. I didn't like that waitress hollering at Henry and his friends to get up, so I told her so. The police came. They pulled us out to the street. Of course, somebody called the newspaper. Well, I'll be. If Jessalyn or me did that at the 5 and dime lunch counter downtown, Mrs. Simpson and her newspaper people would be there faster than you could say hot dog with mustard. I can't imagine what Daddy would do if my picture ended up in the front page of the Hanging Moss Tribune." "I'll bet that was scary," Jessalyn said. "I'm not sorry I did it. It was scary, though. The police hauled us off to jail. I stayed there until my stepdaddy came that evening. I had never done anything bad before, so they let me go with a warning. After that, Mama sent me here to my aunt's, said that she needed some time away from me, claimed that she couldn't hold her head up around town. Now my heart was beating faster than fast. I wondered if Robbie was going the speed limit. My insides were zooming. Jesselyn said, maybe your mama will change her mind and let you come home. Well, yeah, I like it here now. I'm going to stay, especially if I make the football team. You'll make the team, Jesselyn said. You're good. The ice rattling had stopped and the wind had died down some. I could practically hear Jesselyn batting her eyes. Please don't tell anybody what happened in North Carolina. Word gets out I'm a troublemaker. My aunt might send me back. I don't want the team to know either. I shut my eyes tight, clenched my fists together, and willed myself not to push that scratchy blanket back, sit up, and say that Jesselyn wouldn't tell a single soul because she's good at keeping secrets and good at telling lies. I was bad at keeping secrets and real bad at lying, especially to Emma. The car radio came back on, and all I could hear was Elvis singing. The picnic cooler bounced next to me while I thought about having a Dr. Pepper with Jesselyn and Robbie soon, me pretending like I hadn't heard that bad thing about Robbie and his friend Henry. The station wagon slowed and then stopped. We were parked someplace. Jesselyn reached over to the back seat for the camera and about the time that Robbie opened the back way door for the way back door for the cooler. There was no more hiding. Both of them saw me at once. Jesselyn looked like she had seen a ghost. Glory, what are you doing? How did you get back there? She stormed out, slammed her car door, and stood next to Robbie. She reached over and grabbed my wrist, squeezing it so hard she could have given me a rope burn. I twisted away and shut my mouth up tight. My sister was as mad as a hornet. Have you been spying on us? I wanted to see where y'all were going, that's all. I glared at my sister. I double dog dare you to fuss at me. You're not supposed to be here any more than I am. Isn't shopping in Memphis with Mary Louise fun? When I looked over at Robbie, he had his jaw clenched tight. Stay in this station wagon, Jesselyn hissed, and stay quiet. I was all squished up next to the drink cooler. You're not the boss of me. There was this little house right next to where we were parked. Where are we? What is that broken down shack over there? You will never know. You are not budging out of this car. Robbie must have taken some pity on me. Let her out. It's hot back there. She can burn up for all I care. She is not coming with us. Jesselyn's voice was full of meanness. And you better not tell. I mean it, Glory. Robbie grabbed the cooler and followed Jesselyn up the cracked sidewalk. She leaned over, pulled a handful of grass from beside a front step of this little house by the road, and stuffed the grass into her back pocket. I sat at the station wagon, hot, squished, itching to get out. I'm coming, whether you like it or not, I hollered out. Even if it was some falling down house on a street in the middle of nowhere, I wanted to see what they were doing. When I stepped onto the porch steps, it felt like the whole house would cave in. Where are we? Not far from Hanging Moss, if you knew anything at all. This is Tupelo. Elvis lived here when he was a little boy. Jesselyn hugged herself like this was as good as meeting Elvis himself. I mean, this place was downright pitiful, and Jesselyn was acting like it was a palace. I'm going to pause here, and I don't know how many of you guys know who Elvis is that they've been talking about. Elvis Presley in 1964 was one of the most famous singers in history. He was popular, played guitar, made all sorts of records, was in movies, and he was kind of a heartthrob, meaning a lot of girls thought he was really special. Here's another picture of him. And they talked about Robbie's hair was kind of like Elvis's hairdo. And this is a real-life picture of the real-life Elvis's house that's on the internet. So this is a picture of the place that our characters are actually visiting right now. He was raised in this tiny, tiny little house before he became famous. And outside this house, you can still visit it in Tupelo. It says the birthplace of Elvis Presley. Elvis Aaron Presley was born on January 8th, 1935, in this house built by his father. Presley's career as a singer and entertainer redefined American popular music, and he died in Memphis, Tennessee. And you notice Elvis Presley's middle name is Aaron in this picture. That was the middle name of this Robbie character too. So Robbie really likes Elvis Presley, and so does Jessalyn. So I'll read that paragraph again. Not far from hanging moss, if you knew anything at all. This is Tupelo. Elvis lived here when he was a little boy. Jessalyn hugged herself like this was as good as meeting Elvis himself. I mean, this place was downright pitiful, and Jessalyn was acting like it was a palace. I looked around. If this was Elvis's house, you'd think it would be a little fancier. Nothing but dead bushes and a cracked window. Well, what'd you expect? Big iron gates? Don't you know anything, Glory? Robbie pushed back his black hair that was combed just like Elvis's in the picture that Jessalyn kept taped to the mirror in our room. Elvis wasn't rich when he lived here. Not that many people know about this house, Robbie said. He spit on his shirt tail and then wiped circles in the dust of one of the front window panes. Hey, you gotta see this. Jessalyn peered through the dirty window. I dare you to get me some of that wallpaper. She batted her eyes like Robbie was the real Elvis passing out autographs. I'm going around to the back to break in. He jumped off the low porch and disappeared. Jessalyn pulled me down to the front steps. Don't move, she said. She followed Robbie around the corner of the house. I rubbed my hand across the splinters on the steps, picturing Elvis being a little boy crawling around on this very porch. Not a breath of air moved, and the sun was so hot I got to wondering what in tarnation Jessalyn and Robbie were doing behind the house. Nancy Drew wouldn't just wait here. She'd be looking for clues. Where were they? I spotted an open window. I peeked in just in time to see Robbie peel off a piece of wallpaper and hand it to Jessalyn like it was a diamond ring. I could hear them talking plain as day. If we hold the camera back, both of us can be in the picture. Sounds like a selfie, doesn't it? Then I saw a flashbulb pop light, and I heard Jessalyn giggling. I waited in the dirt and the dried up grass and thought about all those nights last summer when we stayed up late talking about how yucky boys were. And now Jessalyn had disappeared with Robbie into the cool shadows of Elvis's living room, and I didn't hear talking anymore. Pretty soon they were climbing back out the open window, acting all moony-eyed. That's when Jessalyn saw me sitting there. I told you to wait on the front porch. She looked right into my eyes. She was squinting hard. I want to see inside too, I told her. You never used to mind if I went places with you. I mind now. The heck with Jessalyn. I climbed right through the window of Elvis's house. Whew! It smelled like the inside of Frankie's hamster cage. I got out fast and I hurried around to the front porch. It stinks to high heaven in there. When's the picnic? I asked. Robbie handed me a drink and a cookie. I dangled my legs off the porch and into the sweltering heat where they giggled and whispered. This porch sitting was getting boring. It'll be getting dark soon, I said. Emma might notice we're gone. We packed up Robbie's station wagon. Before we left, I reached down and stole some of Elvis's grass, too. Then I slipped into the back seat right behind Jessalyn. This is pretty. Thank you. Jessalyn curled her fingers around the piece of green flowered wallpaper. She put her head back on the seat and she looked at Robbie. I had fun today, she said. I squeezed my knees up close to my face and smiled, thinking about Elvis and that ugly wallpaper. I stopped smiling when I thought about Robbie and what he said about jail. We need to hurry. It's getting dark, I said. Right about now, all I wanted was to get home to Emma safe and sound.